Hello, everyone. There behind me, John Amos. Rest in peace. Scott his wings. As we say in the African American culture, he's got his wings. And I'm just going to have a short video paying homage to him. Because if you've paid attention to the news of late, we're learning of his passing well over a month afterwards. And that is brow raising for all of us, I believe, particularly the silence of his publicists, because their job is to make known major occurrences in their clients' lives, but not a word. So we'll wrap up with a look or at least a mention of that. But for now, let's celebrate his life. If you've watched any of his shows, you laugh. I laugh just thinking about it. Good Times was a cracker. It was good. He was good as James, the father on Good Times, known to most of us as James Evans on Good Times. And he really was great in that role, I would say. But he was also excellent in Coming to America, where he played the father, the father of Eddie Murphy's love interest, and he was a crack up there. So he was a wonderful character actor. He was in the miniseries Roots, where he played the adult Kunta Kinte, and I think he had maybe three episodes of that miniseries. So he was very much a major figure in Roots, and I would say that his acting was real. Like the he became the character, and it was almost seamless. He just had a way of delivery, I'd say. And uh, you find yourself literally laughing out loud at his acting. He was a great, wonderful character actor. Some other things of his life, let's take a look at that. Because as you know, when a person passes, you start to understand other things that they were involved in that perhaps we didn't know. For example, he was very involved with the NAACP. He was nominated for an Image Award. He was also early in life. He played football. He was signed a free agent contract with the Denver Broncos. Now, did you know that? I didn't know that. He played on his college university's football team. After college, he was a uh, Golden Gloves boxing champion. Did you know that? So there you go. He was out there. So he was a Golden Gloves boxing champion. He went on to do free agent for the Denver Broncos. He was released after a pulled hamstring. Really became very difficult for him to continue playing. So he went on to play other various football with various different football teams in a lesser role, I would say, but he was definitely on the field. Then after that, he adapted the acting career right around 1970, where he got a commercial for McDonald's. And I'm going to drop that in the description box because I was able to find it. And it really is like there's a young John Amos, and you're like, oh my God. So there he was. But he started with a McDonald's commercial, and then that helped launch his career into, he was on the Betty White show, and he was on the Mary Tyler Moore show, and then he auditioned for the role of the father in Good Times. opposite of Florida Evans. And well, he was the husband of Florida Evans. And he actually got that role and played that good time role for a couple of years. So most of us know him for that role, at least initially know him for that role in which he was very, very good at, as I said. So Esther Roll is the person who plays his screen wife. He was known also as a positive image as African American families struggling to beat the odds of poverty in a neighborhood by which the expression of dissatisfaction came with the poverty, but at least in his household, there was a sense of comedy, and they didn't come across as that they were perhaps struggling, but not impoverished. So the show had a good way of showing that, I put it that way. So it was very, very good. They talked about some heavy political things. Certainly the young son, Michael, would be challenging, and then JJ, and then Thelma, the daughter, who was every guy's crush and every girl's, big sister that they loved to look up to. So really was a wonderful family setting. But around the third year, John Amos began to express to Norman Lear, who was the executive producer of Good Times, that the portrayal of some of the episodes, the portrayal was not genuine for Black people, and that perhaps they were either not promotable to Blacks or not adaptable to Blacks, and that they weren't coming across realistic. And that drew a wedge between him and Norman Lear, and that initially Norman Lear would hear from John Amos about some of the recommendations, but the writers began to balk at the fact that they believed he was overstepping his bound. Now, to me, an expressionist, I think that sometimes in creativity, you try and correct a wrong narrative. And how would white cast, a white producer, white writers know what a real Black life looks like, especially back then in the early 70s. It's not to be colorist or stereotypical, or maybe that's not even your intention. But when you don't have the experience, perhaps listening to someone who is the experience is helpful. But that didn't happen. So John Amos was released from his contract early for being vociferous about, boisterous about how it probably should be. And so that led to other acting experience, I'd say, including Coming to America and including Roots, which was phenomenal and is still a prize for anyone to sit down and read or watch and rewatch that. So his career was not overshadowed by the change from not being on Good Times anymore. The Good Times continued, I put it that way. So I put it that way. He continued on. So having said that, he also began doing some writing of his own, working and showing up in like movies and episodes such as All in the Family and Men in Trees and All About the Andersons. So Norman Lear did not do the Hollywood thing where it's common that they blackball your career or stop or tell other, either agents or producers to not work with you. This is just nonsense. I I don't think anyone's career should be stopped by anyone else. It should be your own drive and ambition that gets you to the next opportunity. I'm not a strong advocate of that. And so Norman Lear did not do that. So John Amos continued to work. He was also on the A Team and on the Bill Cosby show. So, well, anyway. So having said that, he had a wonderful, wonderful career. He had a wonderful, active life. He was definitely prominent and well known and visually recognizable in the Black community. And I'll drop the IMDb of his work history in the description box for your convenience. Now, having said that, I want to just cover just a little bit because I don't want to take away from this man's wonderful, illustrious life. And I'm just giving my overview. I mean, I don't know him personally, but I just want to honor as I do, particularly Black contributions into this world. But having said that, I recently, and I don't just do Black, by the way. Okay, I just don't. Recently I did Richard Simmons, which I want to cross-reference here. And that there was noted concern about Richard before his passing, and that there were questions about his housekeepers keeping him, estranged from others and not allowing him to read his emails. And it's just things like that, which are horrific tales to me. These are just horrific to anyone, but certainly anyone who's had such an illustrious career to be isolated in such a way that the world can't even realize that you're not there, because typically you're shielded from the public because of your public image and you don't want to be imposed upon. So you do push them back. But if you're being held in a contemptuous way, that's where the concern is. And it's been more than a time or two in which I have heard, read, reviewed, discovered, or learned about such a thing. And it's very disturbing to me. It's very disturbing because to me, the person is being held almost captive, in my view. Now, those are my words. Almost, their well-being is not optimal. I'll put it that way, not optimal. So having said that, I'm bringing that up because Richard, to commingle with John Amos here, before his passing, his son and daughter was in a very acrimonious, for years, battle over the care of their dad. And that his daughter Shannon didn't feel that his son KC was caring for their father properly, and hadn't cared for their mother properly either. And that he had prior drug problems and alcohol problems, was in and out of treatment. Now, that doesn't take away from a person, because people recover just fine. But her concern was that he had not recovered just fine, and that he was milking their money and taking their money and changing their wills. And she had a lot of legitimate concerns. And they had been battling. And KC was the person, the caretaker, and did not allow Shannon access to certainly John Amos, but my understanding is the mom before. Now, I won't speak too much on it because this is still developing and I'm still learning and I'm hearing about it. It's probably as you are. And that it is very concerning. Here are the three things that are most concerning to me. The fact that his passing occurred on August 21st and no one knew about it until October 1st, 6 weeks later, even her. Absolutely, positively, 100%, 1,000%, dotted every I, crossed every T, bold print, and italicized. Wrong. Wrong. Point number two is by the time they found out of his passing, he had been cremated. So there could be no inspection, what I call inspection, autopsy, as to how he died, and if the heart failure that they claimed that was his passing was generated by something, was proposed, was introduced unnecessarily. So there's no able to find that. So that's number two. And then number three, which is very bothersome to me, is why didn't the PR person know? Now, your PR person, not your babysitter, but your PR person knows what's going on. They're your marketing agent. They're your spokesperson. They're your eyes to the public. When something occurs with you, they're speaking in behalf of you. They're protecting your image. They're promoting your skills. Where were they? Now, I understand if when he's 84 years old, maybe he wasn't working as much. But as long as you're an actor and you have the Screen Actor Guild card, you have a PR person, particularly when you have such a work history as he did. That's number three, but 3A and then 3B is, why didn't any family members know? Was the isolation that severe? That no one knew? You're a man who has such an illustrious, comical, fun, entertaining life, despite what he may have been privately. Publicly, he was a American's dad. He was a funny dad. He was a dad on Coming to America. He was a dad on Good Times. He was a dad even in Roots as Kunta Kinte. And no one knew what happened to Dad. Not even Shannon, his own daughter, knew what happened to Dad. And that's concerning. That's very concerning. And I'll just leave it at that because I'd like to honor his life and not question the events, but I do want to raise them as I did. So now that he has his rings, may heaven rejoice and the good times roll. I hope you've gotten this far. Please click like and subscribe, and I love you. Have a good night. We'll see you next time. Good night.